So Bainbridge Island is this magical place. It's this big island. It's kind of about the size of Manhattan across from Seattle. Bainbridge is just amazing. I don't even know where to start. The ward members in that area just completely changed my view of how a ward could function. Just how converted and dedicated people were. Bainbridge is kind of the antithesis of my first area in Parkland. Parkland, sketchy, interesting. My parents were like, "Oh my gosh, my child might die." I was fine. I was like, it's fine. I'm protected. And then Bainbridge was just the safest, this little bubble of happiness. People would joke that there's kind of this island full of rich hippies, just because you're right across from Seattle. You have a ton of people that work in the city. It started out as a really small, farmy kind of island, and people just kept flocking to it because there's just such a good place to raise kids. So just night and day, these two areas of my mission. Bainbridge itself is just super cute and adorable and quaint, but also just way clean and nice and upscale. I don't know how all these things fit together, but somehow that's what Bainbridge is. Bainbridge, it was super organized, structurally in the ward. They had just way good goals. Being a missionary on Bainbridge, with that ward, was just way easy. Not that the work was easy by any means, because finding people that needed you was a whole different approach than when people are scraping by and have addictions and problems. But it was cool because on Bainbridge, so much of the missionary work was focused on creating eternal families, or helping people that didn't have fully active members of their family, and bringing them closer together. And by doing that, it just was dominoes. People would help other people come to the gospel, and just really, really cool. Bainbridge is just super special. It kind of felt like this respite, or even though the work was still hard, even though things were still really rough, because that's kind of the nature of the game. We had a lot of responsibilities with other sisters and things too while we were on Bainbridge, but it just felt such a growing time, where most all the sisters that I've ever talked to who've ever served on Bainbridge, both my trainers ended up ending their missions on Bainbridge. It just was this very growing area for all of us. Somewhere where we were just definitely very nurtured and just given ample opportunities to grow, but in an environment that was just so supportive. Definitely I don't know, the island, I'd live on the island. I'd go back. It was also springtime at that point. So weather-wise, it was just getting more and more beautiful every day. And people get a lot happier when it's not dark all the time and kind of drizzly. And so people were happy to speak with us, and people were just so kind and polite. So if anyone serves on Bainbridge, then just know you're in for super nice people everywhere. Because even if they don't want to talk to you about the gospel, they'll still be super polite and send you off. One of my companions, we had both served in inner city Tacoma, and we were just so confused because no one was cussing us out, and no one was angry with us, and no one was taking getting their guns out or setting their dogs on us. And this is just so weird. And once someone swore at us, but it was in the most and like proper way ever. And so we like left that house. We're like, oh my gosh, like it happened finally. Like it was just so different. It's such like just kind of crazy because I feel like in every mission you'll have these just like ends of the spectrum, but they felt like the ends of the spectrum from like in the mission field. I was like, well, like this is every way different from that other area, and yet I can love it just as much. Like the work still goes forward, like you adapt to how like you need to be a missionary. Like way fun, way cool. The island has a bridge on top and ferries out the bottom. The island itself is really like self-contained in a lot of ways. It's not super small. Like there are a lot of people on the island, which is also like, oh, we have a lot of people that we're responsible for. But like Costco, all like the fun shopping, that was all off the island. So I remember people would go off the island all the time. Most people did not work on the island, just since so many people like commuted into Seattle or into Bremerton or Silverdale or things. So lots of bikers on the island, like cyclists, like everywhere, all the time. Like lots of vegans, just lots of like just people that I would have never met in Parkland, ever. The island, like it felt really big, especially on days when we couldn't use our car. So there was a while where our car was just like in the shop for a long time, and me and my companion tried biking everywhere. Bainbridge is super hilly. It's this island carved by a glacier. And so they have these like these bike races that are known for their hills and things. And so, I thought like biking hills was bad. And then you try biking in a skirt, and it is just a whole new level. Bainbridge is great. Like one of my favorite places. Also, like way gorgeous because we'd get to like look across the sound and see like the Seattle skyline, and just everywhere you looked was just water. It's just gorgeous. I just loved being on the water so much. It's just like all of my areas up until then, like Parkland, completely landlocked. Didn't know that like what water? There's no water. And then like in Lincoln, I saw like the tiniest bit of the sound if I stood on this one bridge and like in between two buildings. And I was like, it exists. Then I was in Belfair, where I was like on the Hood Canal, and I was like, it doesn't get better than this. And then I was on an island surrounded by water all the time, and it was just, it was way great. The hard part is like you can't go on boats. So people definitely made a lot of promises when I came back to visit, like, oh, we'll go out on the boat, like when you come back, since you can't go out now since you're a missionary. So that wasn't as fun, but means I have a long to-do list when I go back and when I visit. At one point, we lived in like the basement apartment of this like recent convert, someone who joined the church really recently, and she liked to call herself our auntie. She's a bit older. She lived alone, had some animals, like everyone in Washington. Everyone has pets in Washington. So many pets. But at one point, we get this call early in the morning. Early in the morning. And like, it wakes us up, and we're trying to figure out what's going on and why she's calling us. And she just keeps calling, and we just like hear just like breathing on the phone. And she's like, I need help. She's like, uh-oh. So we have to like break into her house and find her in her bedroom. And we had to have call an ambulance. Our landlady had like kidney stones and like all these terrible things. And so somehow it's like 6 a.m. and we're in an ambulance on the ferry to Seattle with our landlady. We're like, we need to call the mission president. What are we like? Just because she's like, she had no family, she had nowhere else to get there. She thought she was dying. The paramedics didn't think she was dying. but she was like super worried and concerned. And so we spent the morning in the hospital talking to people in the room about who we were, even though we were like in our pajamas and like showered, like our hair's all a mess. And we were able to grab, like, at least nothing else. We grabbed like the phone, the keys, Book of Mormon, and our tags. And so we're just chilling in the hospital, hoping that our landlady gets better. And everything was fine once some meds were given and she's able to go home. And it was just, she's like, oh, like, thank goodness, because we had just moved into her house right before I got there. She's like, if this had happened and no one had been home, I don't know what I would have done. And she's like, obviously God's looking out for you. Obviously he put two very nice little roommates down there that could accompany you to the hospital in your hour of need. But it's just so interesting, just because I never would have anticipated having to take a ferry at like 6 a.m. with my landlady for kidney stones as missionary. That's like just not the typical service that you provide. It's not like chopping wood or like cleaning someone's house or like taking out their trash or helping them move. It's like so out of the blue. But definitely one of like the funniest experiences that me and my companion like still laugh about. Because there's like that one time, like the kidney stones.